Okay, I guess we are. That answers my question. Why don't we go ahead and get started? So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Peter Stemp, and I work with the Solidarity and Development Secretariat. And thank you for joining us for our webinar series, Fostering Our Lasallian Mission Together. And today is the second installment of our series, Accompanying the Mission, the Solidarity and Development Secretariat. And so today we'll provide a general overview of the different activities and work of the Secretariat. And we want to invite all of you that if you want to learn more about a specific aspect that we've covered, to please join us for future webinars where we'll be covering in more detail many of the aspects that we'll present briefly today. So since we're discussing a brief commercial for our upcoming events, November 3rd, we have a webinar, Helping the Most Needy, Emergency Humanitarian Relief, and December 1st, Sharing the Path Towards One Global Volunteer Network. And so maybe just, we ask you to keep those on your calendar and let us know if you have any questions on that. But stay tuned for that, and we hope to see you on November 3rd and December 1st. And so on behalf of our entire Secretariat, our Executive Director, Brother Milkare Bokuchia on the left, Brother Raul Traore, Serena Pegorin, Angela Matuli, Laura Ballerini, Eleonora Munaretto, and myself, we'd just like to say thank you to all of you for joining us and for all of the work that you do in our schools and in our Lasallian ministries throughout the world. And we really look forward to discussing ways that we can partner with you and continue to deepen our collaboration. And so as we get started today, to provide more information about the Solidarity and Development Secretariat, I wanted to ask all of you, what comes to mind when you think of the Solidarity and Development Secretariat? And I invite all of you, if you could just go to the chat box and click on the Mentimeter and type in one word about what comes to mind. So what comes to mind when you think of the Solidarity and Development Secretariat? Great, and Rosie's put that there. Great, funding, fundraising, zeal, great stuff. Mutual support, I'm seeing in the chat. Thank you, Brother Das. Projects, assistance. Yep, all sorts of great activities. Networking, yes, Brother Simon, thank you. Yeah, great, thank you, Rosie. Oh, let's see if I can get back to the presentation here. Great, and so what we want to do today with our time together, and if you can see my screen here, is provide a brief history of the Solidarity and Development Secretariat, explain a little of our mission, our mandate, and our collective impact we have. Yes.
You're not sharing your screen.
Oh, that's not helpful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So our itinerary today, what we'd like to do together is to give a brief overview on the history of the Solidarity and Development Secretariat, share a little bit of our mission and the collective impact that the Secretariat has working with many of you that are on the call today, and sharing 5 ways in which we carry out our work through immediate response to humanitarian crises, using education as a tool for long-term development, solidarity and advocacy for marginalized and vulnerable populations, self-sufficiency for our institutions in fragile sectors of the Institute, and support for brothers and lay formation. Additionally, we'd also like to share with you a key tool that we're using as the Secretariat to carry out our work today. And then we'll close the presentation part of our webinar, highlighting ways in which we're partnering with many of you, and then hopefully spurring some ideas for potential collaboration with you in the future. So that's kind of our plan for today. And let's go ahead and get started with the history of the Solidarity and Development Secretariat. And so as we think about the work of our Secretariat, we want to explain that over the last 75 years, the Institute has always had a formal instrument in order to support Lasallian educational initiatives in fragile sectors, right? And as you can see, over time, the name of that instrument has changed in order to adapt to the context of the times in which the Institute was working. So as we see in 1946, this instrument to support Lasallian initiatives in fragile sectors was called International Mission Secretariat. That evolved to SECLI in 1966, which many of you are probably familiar with. And then after the general chapter in 2007, the Solidarity and Development Secretariat was born. That led to a legal instrument, Fondazione della Sale Solidarietà Internazionale, ONLUS, and up to today, 2021, the LaSalle Foundation. And so what we want to communicate here is that while the names have changed over time, the work and the mission of the Solidarity and Development Secretariat on behalf of the Institute has always stayed the same, to be able to support Lasallian educational initiatives in fragile sectors of our global Lasallian family. And so when we talk about today and the LaSalle Foundation, why do we have this? Why does the Solidarity and Development Secretariat need a foundation? Because when the Secretariat looks at the context of our time, there are many opportunities for us to develop partnerships with external partners, public government funding agencies, and private donors. However, in order to make those partnerships, the Institute and the Secretariat need to have a legal instrument to do that. And so LaSalle Foundation is the latest iteration of the Institute's formal instrument to be able to help support Lasallian educational initiatives throughout the global Lasallian family. Good. So that's kind of a brief snapshot of the history of the Solidarity and Development Secretariat. And now we'd like to explain a little bit about our mandate, our mission, and some of the collective impact that we've had working with all of you in order to carry out our work. And to do that, I'd like to turn it over to Serena Pegorin of the Secretariat, who will lead us in this next step. Serena, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Since its foundation, the Secretariat mission is promoting access to quality education for children at risk, contributing to empower fragile communities served by brothers and lay partners. We have three ways.
Nous avons trois façons.
Hermanos y colaboradores. Lo hacemos de tres medios. Primero
is the most visible action, and in doing so, we ensure the accompaniment of the fragile local realities, starting from the design up to the evaluation of the intervention carried out. Secondly, through the capacity building, we empower project leaderships to ensure human resources sustainability on the long run. This is possible thanks to child safeguard trainings, best practices sharing, in addition to a gender balance approach. Thirdly, we provide technical assistance. Thanks to our shared expertise, we are able to ensure a professional accompaniment, supporting local project managers to achieve the impacts. Furthermore, thanks to local staff, auditors, engineers, and technicians, we are able to ensure the accountability of the action towards our donors. Thank you, Peter. Next. This backstage work could be carried out only thanks to our partners. So you all, one of our main aim is leverage the network, creating new partnerships and new connection among the Lasallian NGOs, schools, districts, sectors that help us to carry out the mission, financially supported by external donors. Next. From 2014 up to 2020, our main impact can be summarized in some of key figures that you see here. We carried out 36 child protection and child safeguard programs. We train an overall of 8,224 people. Other than this, to empower the local leadership, we trained 28 officers in project management. And finally, as Secretariat, we coordinated 10 Lasallian worldwide humanitarian relief campaign. Thank you, Peter. Over the last 7 years, we grew steadily and we increased our activities thanks to the new staff that joined us. We have gone by 54 projects in 2014, reaching the incredible number of 19 projects in 2019. We tackled humanitarian relief action. We foster the child safeguard within the Institute while keeping the development as the core activity of this Secretariat. Thanks. As our impact continues to grow, external partners increasingly and becoming interested in collaborating with you, with the Lasallian mission. The orange in the graphic represents external partners' contribution. And thanks to the legal instrument, just renamed LaSalle Foundation, and especially thanks to the internal funds granted by the Institute, in 2020, we were able to reach 2,500 beneficiaries, touching 31 countries. And this is not bad, right? Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Serena, for providing that kind of overview of the Secretariat and the collective impact. And those numbers are a result of all of the work that all of you do together with us. So thank you for all of your help and for all that you do every day in your ministries. And now to provide some more information on specifically how we carry out our work, I'd like to invite Brother Craig Franz, who will highlight ways in which the Secretariat coordinates the Institute's response to humanitarian and emergency crises throughout the world. Brother Craig, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As Serena has indicated, during the past number of years, since 2014 to 2020, there have been 10 humanitarian campaigns that have been advanced through the Secretariat. These campaigns include such things as natural disasters and civil disturbances, but they also involve large-scale other unanticipated events. And so if there's a natural disaster somewhere in the world that affects the Lasallian ecosystem, you can be pretty sure that we're running a disaster relief campaign for humanitarian funds. And so our past campaigns recently have included such things as responses for Ethiopia, for Venezuela, for Mozambique, and for South Sudan. Even more recently, there's been a campaign that has been launched for LaSalle, Beirut. And as you know, with the explosion in the port, 3 of our schools that happen to be located near the port or in the port were damaged extensively. And through the humanitarian and emergency relief campaign that was launched by the Secretariat, Lasallians around the world were able to assist in this particular humanitarian campaign. Additionally, we have been very responsive with regards to COVID, and a large-scale COVID response campaign began just 2 months after COVID was first discovered. And that campaign lasted for about 7 months and resulted in $11 million worth of funds being collected and distributed to over 70,000 beneficiaries. This was an enormous campaign that involved all sectors of the Institute. And we'll be talking more about this particular campaign at another time. But suffice it to say that fundraising or humanitarian campaigns are not solely about fundraising. And they are about your involvement and how you can help Lasallian entities in fragile sectors. So we'll have more to speak about that at another time. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Craig. And that leads us right into your upcoming webinar. And so I'd like to invite all of you, if you'd like to learn more about how the Institute coordinates the responses for humanitarian emergencies, please stay tuned and join us on November 3rd for the webinar, Helping the Most Needy, Emergency Humanitarian Relief, which will be coordinated by Brother Craig. Thanks again, Brother Craig. Great. In addition to coordinating immediate responses to humanitarian crises, the Secretariat also leverages education as a tool for long-term development to transform the lives of not only individuals, but entire communities in which Lasallians are present. And as we move into this portion of the presentation, I wanted to ask everyone a general question, and maybe you can respond in the Mentimeter in the chat. How many of the 1 million students that the Institute educates every day are at risk of social and educational exclusion? Is it 100,000, 400,000? Just go ahead and type in the number that you think is most appropriate, that best answers that question. So how many of the 1 million students that the Institute educates every day are at risk of social and educational exclusion? So we're seeing 0 to 200,000. Great. We're getting some more information coming in. Brother Das, thanks for replying into the chat there. We get 400 to 600,000. So just one more second on this. How many of the 1 million students that the Institute educates every day are at risk of social and educational exclusion? Great, thank you so much. And I think we'll wrap up the poll there. And I will try to reshare my screen here. Bear with me, everybody. Great. Okay. Thanks for your participation in that. And as some of you may know, that over half of the 1 million students that the Institute serves every day live multidimensional vulnerabilities and are at risk of social and educational exclusion. So over 500,000 of our students in our classrooms are facing social and educational exclusion, which underscores the importance of our Lasallian initiatives to utilize education as a tool for long-term development. And to highlight some of the ways in which we're supporting these Lasallian initiatives, I'd like to introduce Angela Matuli from the Secretariat, who will give her presentation in Spanish. Angela, gracias.
Gracias, Peter. Buenos días. Y bueno, hablando de desarrollo sostenible, no podemos no hablar de la inclusión educativa de las
Habla.
niñas.
On ne peut pas oublier
Como
Girls, the example as how the LaSalle we respond.
a la educación de calidad de las niñas y mujeres es la escuela La Salle para niñas en Faisalabad. Pakistán es un país donde por ley se separan niños y niñas durante algunos niveles del ciclo educativo. Esto pasa durante la adolescencia y muchas niñas abandonan la escuela por falta de estructuras educativas para ellas. Y eso acutiza la discriminación que ellas sufren ya en esos contextos. Mientras centenas de niñas acuden a la escuela La Salle para niñas, y aún más importante es que ellas allí se sienten libres y protegidas. Y no sé si todos sabemos que en La Salle, en todo el mundo, cada día más de 60,000 mujeres colaboran en la misión educativa. Por primera vez, el 1 de noviembre de este año, se lanzará una encuesta como un diagnóstico sobre realidades y necesidades de las mujeres en la red Lasallian Global. Entonces, invitamos a todas las mujeres a participar en la encuesta que recibirán. Circulará por la red Lasallian Global. La próxima, Peter, por favor. Y siguiendo nuestro recorrido a través de las iniciativas que promueven el desarrollo a largo plazo, estamos muy conscientes de que la paz y la construcción de la ciudadanía pasan por la educación integral. Es a eso que en Sudán del Sur, como Lasalle, queremos contribuir educando a las jóvenes generaciones que puedan hacer la diferencia para ellos mismos, para sus familias y para crear comunidades más justas. La próxima, Peter, por favor. Y bueno, les he dado solo 2 ejemplos. Hay mucho más a descubrir, mucho más. Entonces, para conocer más sobre el tema, les invitamos a participar al ciclo de webinar en la próxima primavera. Gracias, Peter.
Great. Thank you very much, Angela, for sharing a couple of examples of how our Lasallian institutions serve as vehicles or centers for community development, transforming the lives of not only individuals, but also the communities in which they serve. Thanks again, Angela. And additionally, the Secretariat, as well as responding and coordinating emergency response, supporting long-term development through education. The Secretariat also supports the Institute's efforts in solidarity and advocacy for marginalized and vulnerable populations, with a special focus on children and the rights of the child. And to highlight some of the ways in which the Secretariat is supporting these advocacy activities, I'd like to invite Laura Ballerini, our Director of Communications, to share with us a little bit more about our efforts in advocacy. Laura, thanks.
Thank you so much, Peter. So, as we have said, part of the core of our mission is to ensure the rights of children and youth everywhere, especially those who live at risk of social and educational exclusion. And the protection of children's rights involves, of course, the training of educators and the staff involved in our educational centers. And this is why every year we run courses on child protection policies to raise awareness on child safeguard, so as to make the school a safe environment, but also a center for the promotion of children's rights. In 2020, we have trained 3,900 educators and caregivers in 4 countries for the benefit of more than 280,000 people. And as you have seen before, since 2014, we have organized 36 programs on child protection, training more than 8,000 people. And among these courses, there are also those to form tutor of resilience. In biology, resilience is the ability of a system to rebuild itself after a traumatic event. And likewise, when we talk about individuals and in particular children, we mean the ability to grow and develop fully despite great difficulties. So the courses that we offer aim to develop a program in partnership with the International Catholic Bureau (BICE) and Francesco Belmonte Association for the training of tutor of resilience to help children and teenagers living in vulnerable situations. And also in partnership with the BICE, we organize also annual awareness raising events. If Peter can move to the next slide, thank you. So every year we organize this event to raise awareness on children's rights, and we invite partners and other organizations to share stories and good practices, and in this way spread a culture of child rights protection. And I'm pleased to share with you the news that the next 26th of November, there will be another meeting on child protection, and you're all invited to connect with us to talk about the challenges to education in this post-pandemic context in the most fragile countries. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. So please, everyone, stay tuned for that opportunity on November 26th to participate in that child protection webinar. In addition to advocacy activities, the Secretariat also supports solidarity activities to help put Lasallians throughout the Institute into contact and to help them get to know our global Lasallian family. And one of the ways in which we do that is through international volunteering opportunities. And to highlight that aspect of our work, I'd like to invite Eleonora Munaretto, who serves as the Secretariat's International Volunteer Coordinator. Eleonora, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so, the Secretariat has always been aware of the great initiatives, projects, and volunteer programs taking place around the Institute. So looking at, all this richness, what is the potential of this network? We think is huge. And starting from this consideration, in 2018 has been created the Desk for the International Coordination of Volunteer Experiences. And it has been created with the goal of supporting Lasallian communities worldwide for the creation and implementation of volunteer projects, and also with the goal of creating a common working ground. And this has been done taking always in consideration all the different projects, programs, and volunteer initiatives that already exist in the Institute. And this has been the great richness, to work starting from all this knowledge and taking together the best practices learned by many years of work in the area of volunteer opportunities, and also taking in consideration the incredible complexity of the identity of Lasallian volunteers. So since 2018, the work done has been focused on the creation of tools and of a working system for the management of volunteer projects, with the goal of creating a global network where the volunteers and all the Lasallian family could really have a great impact responding to the needs of the Lasallian communities worldwide. So to know more about this, we will have a dedicated event. So Peter, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Eleonora. And as you mentioned, Eleonora will be leading a webinar on December 1st entitled Sharing the Path Towards One Global Volunteer Network. And so really encourage all of you to join us for that one to learn more about how we're connecting all of these different wonderful opportunities throughout the Institute. Thanks again, Laura and Eleonora. So we've mentioned immediate response to humanitarian crises, how the Secretariat supports education as a long-term tool for development, highlighted some of the solidarity and advocacy work throughout the Institute. Additionally, the Secretariat supports Lasallian institutions in achieving and working toward self-sufficiency to reduce reliance on external funding to help support their important missions where they're working. And to give us a wonderful example of self-sufficiency in action, I'd like to reintroduce Angela Matuli, who will present again in Spanish about a ministry in Cameroon. Angela, thanks again.
Gracias, Peter. Bueno, es el Colegio Superior de La Salle en Douala ha desarrollado no solo cursos para estudiantes universitarios, sino ha integrado cursos intensivos breves en partenariado con empresas que operan en el país y en la región. Son las empresas mismas, las empresas que pagan por los cursos de sus empleados. Gracias a ese tipo de ingreso, la escuela puede ofrecer becas y puede ofrecer programas, sea a nivel universitario, sea de breve duración para jóvenes que estén fuera del mercado laboral, fuera del sistema educativo formal. Entonces, para darle una segunda oportunidad. Entonces, esa es una experiencia muy de éxito que queremos compartir y que se pueda replicar más y más en los distintos países donde trabajamos. Gracias, Peter.
All right. Thank you, Angela. Just a great example of Lasallian ministries leveraging their educational expertise to help support the mission and the work that they carry out in 80 countries in over 1,000 educational institutions. Thanks, Angela. So in addition to immediate response to humanitarian crises, long-term development, solidarity and advocacy activities, promoting self-sufficiency, the Secretariat also collaborates with the Secretariat of Formation to help support the formation of brothers, religious, and lay people throughout the Institute. And as we move into that portion of the presentation, I wanted to ask another little Mentimeter poll if I could. And this one, how many brothers are in the district of Antananarivo? How many brothers are in the district of Antananarivo? And if we could share the Mentimeter there. Thanks, Rosie. We're saying, oh, well, great. Is it around 15, 30, more than 50? We'll hang out for this for just one more minute. And extra credit for those of you that can tell us the country in which Antananarivo is the capital. What country is Antananarivo the capital? And Brother Michel Zoe, if you're with us today, you're not allowed to answer. Great. Why don't we wrap up the poll there? Great. And let's go back to the presentation, make sure we can all see it. Great. Thanks for participating in that. And so there are more than 50 brothers. There are 72 brothers. Latest information from both Brother Raul Traore and Brother Michel Zoe there. And of course, Antananarivo is the capital of Madagascar. And I mention this district because the district of Antananarivo is one of over 14 different districts, delegations, sectors, and Lasallian sisters that the Secretariat supports in collaboration with the Secretariat for Formation. And so to highlight more about how we do this, I'd like to invite Brother Raul Traore of the Secretariat, who's normally stationed in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, but is joining us today from Rome. And Brother will present in French. Brother Raul, thanks so much for joining us.
Merci Peter, bonjour à tous. Et à la suite de ce que nous venons d'entendre,
Thank you, Peter. After what we heard, we can say
ordonne le financement partiel de la formation des postulants, des novices, des scolastiques et qui sont originaires des districts, délégations et secteurs fragiles de l'Institut à travers le fonds de partage. Le secrétariat coordonne également le financement des études supérieures et professionnelles au niveau licence ou master,
masters or a bachelor of the brothers and sisters last
secteur fragile, grâce à la bourse Premia, désormais dénommée Fonds Lasalle Alvaro. Par ailleurs, le secrétariat appuie la formation des laïcs. Par exemple, leur participation au CIL organisé en 2018 à Nairobi, leur participation à la formation sur la protection des enfants organisée dans les différents districts, etc. Grâce au financement de Mission Cara, le secrétariat, avec l'appui de Caplor à Horizon, a lancé le programme de renforcement des capacités des leaders, notamment des ONG Lasalliennes, en vue d'une plus grande collaboration au sein du réseau Lasallien. Merci bien, Peter. Et s'il y a des questions, je suis disposé pour
Preguntas.
les autres membres du secrétariat.
All right, thank you very much, Brother Raul, for that overview on how the Secretariat collaborates to support formation of brothers, religious, and also lay people as well. And so we've gone through the history of the Secretariat, shared with you the mandate and some of our collective impact that we've had working with all of you, shared 5 ways in which we carry out our work. And now we'd like to share a special tool that the Secretariat uses today to help us carry out our work. And in order to carry out our work today, the Secretariat, we had to ask ourselves a question. And I'd like to share that question with all of you, because the answer to that question is what's really helped us to be able to procure external resources to help the mission, and also invite those who might not be familiar with our global Lasallian family to understand the impact and potential of our global Lasallian family. And so that question that we've asked ourselves is this: what do these 2 institutions have in common? And Rosie will share a Mentimeter cloud now in the chat. But what do the De La Salle Christian Brothers, the Institute of the Brothers of the Christian Schools, what do we have in common with the United Nations? I think this is a word cloud. So if you could just type in a one word response on what do the De La Salle Christian Brothers in our institute, what does the Lasallian mission have in common with the United Nations? And if we could just respond to that Mentimeter word cloud there. Sustainable development, SDGs, justice, internacionalidad, yes. Education, service, justice. Seeing from Brother Das, educational development in underprivileged populations, great. Peace, el servicio, la fraternidad, yeah. Rights of the child, thanks, Brother Simon, yeah. Great. So I'm seeing service and education are really shining through there. Great. Great. Why don't we go ahead and wrap this up? Thanks everyone for participating in that, because that really was an essential question for our Secretariat to answer. And many of you have mentioned it in the Mentimeter. One of the key things among many that the Institute and Lasallians and our mission has in common with the United Nations are the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, right? And while many of you might be familiar with these, some of us might not be. Very briefly, the Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals that the United Nations has decided are essential to achieve in order to have a more peaceful and a more prosperous world by the year 2030. And for the Secretariat, we realized that these Sustainable Development Goals, these 17 goals, served as an effective language to communicate the work and the impact of our global Lasallian family, of our institutions, to introduce our work to external institutions and agencies that might not be familiar with our global Lasallian family. Right? And for us, this was a really important realization, because it's been very helpful as we continue our work to procure external resources to help support Lasallian initiatives in fragile sectors of the Institute. And to illustrate how, I think we've got another question coming up here. To kind of dive a little deeper, which three government donors provide the most money in total official development assistance in the world? And Rosie, if we could share that Mentimeter poll there in the chat. Is it A, Canada, Italy, and the United Kingdom? Is it B, United States, Germany, and EU institutions? Is it C, France, Japan, and Sweden? So, which three government donors provide the most money in total official development assistance in the world? Say, okay, we're getting a lot of good responses coming in. Is it A, Canada, Italy, United Kingdom? B, United States, Germany, EU institutions? Is it France, Japan, and Sweden? Great. All right, last call for responses here. Great, why don't we go ahead and come back to the presentation there. Thanks for participating in our little poll there. And the answer is B, United States. If you see at the bottom there, United States, Germany, and EU institutions. United States over the last year donating over $35 billion, Germany over 25, EU institutions nearly 20, followed very closely by the other countries as well. And the reason why we show this slide is because this highlights a unique opportunity for the Solidarity and Development Secretariat. Many of these governments are very interested in partnering with faith-based organizations and religious congregations. However, many also require a legal entity, a legal instrument with whom to partner. And so that shows the importance of the LaSalle Foundation, right? That the Secretariat created this instrument in order to develop these types of partnerships, because there are a lot of financial resources available from external public partners. However, many of these public partners might not be very familiar with our global Lasallian family and the impact that we have. And that's where the Sustainable Development Goals come in, because many of these public donors use the Sustainable Development Goals to help them decide what projects that they want to fund and what organizations that they would like to partner with. And so as a secretariat, our ability to communicate the Lasallian mission and the work and impact of our institutions as a response and to show how we're achieving the Sustainable Development Goals will determine how effective we can be in obtaining external public resources to help support our global Lasallian family. And so the Sustainable Development Goals have really become an important tool for us in carrying out our work to help support Lasallian educational initiatives in fragile sectors of the Institute. Additionally, these Sustainable Development Goals can serve as a neat connection point for many of us in our ministries, as a way to show the impact of our global Lasallian family to those who might not be familiar. It could be of interest to your students or those whom you serve in your ministries. And one of the ways in which we're partnering with many of you to help inform our students and those whom we serve in our ministries, as well as those that are outside of the global Lasallian family, is through our sensitization campaign. We're partnering with many of you on an Education for Development campaign, and we'd ask all of you to really consider joining us in that. We have plenty of resources for you that we can make available. I think at some point in the presentation, Laura might put in the chat box a link to a Google Drive folder that will have all sorts of different resources to help us in our classrooms and in our different ministries to be able to communicate to those that we work with and those that we serve the global impact and the relationship that our Lasallian family has in helping to achieve those 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And by doing so, making the world a more peaceful and prosperous place. And if you'd like to learn more about how we're working in this area, I'd invite you all to revisit the webinar that we did on September 8th on educating future generations to global citizenship and sustainable development. And a link to that presentation should be available in that Google Drive folder as well. Great. So we've gone through ways in which the history of the Secretariat, shared our mandate and mission and our collective impact together. And we just shared a unique tool that we're using today to help the Secretariat carry out our mission. And finally, we'd like to share ways in which we're partnering with all of you and hopefully spur ideas for conversation about how we might create new partnerships and new collaborations with all of you. And to lead us in this portion, I'd like to reintroduce Serena Pegorin from the Solidarity and Development Secretariat. Serena?
Thank you, Peter. In 2018, as Secretariat, we reflected on how we can deeply engage the Lasallian worldwide within the mission and how we may support the network other than fundraising while leveraging its expertise. One way has been literally bring the global mission within classrooms with peer-to-peer exchanges among Lasallian schools worldwide. Thank you, Peter. Next. Another way has been open our office to international development internships for those Lasallian students passionate about the international development and Lasallian service, giving them also the chance to gain a professional experience in doing so. We did it because we know that Lasallian students will be a resource for the future of the mission for the next 50 years. Thank you, Peter. Next. Exploring and leveraging Lasallian professional expertise thanks to a project sponsored by Mijankara, we supported a partnership between Universidad La Salle Noreste and the new Lasallian University of Africa in Burkina Faso to develop a new course in environmental protection. This partnership represents a great model and a future collaboration for Lasallian institution through a global Lasallian network. Thank you, and I give it back to Peter.
Great, thank you very much, Serena, for highlighting some of those ways in which we're already partnering with so many of you. Additionally, we're working with many of our Lasallian NGOs throughout the world to help obtain additional financial resources to help support Lasallian educational initiatives in fragile sectors. The most recent partnership that we've developed highlights a way in which these partnerships can work. Recently, the LaSalle Foundation has partnered with LaSalle International Foundation based in Washington, DC. We mentioned the amount of public funding available. So if we start at the top of this graph, we'll see USAID. That's the United States government. In order to access funding for a particular opportunity in South Sudan, the Institute needed to find a local partner in the United States. And so our foundation in Rome, LaSalle Foundation, collaborated with Brother Craig and LaSalle International Foundation, and working with our team on the ground there in South Sudan to understand the needs and working together to put together a proposal that was submitted through LaSalle International Foundation as a United States NGO to the United States government in order to procure funding to assist our Lasallian ministries in a neat educational initiative, a collaborative project in South Sudan to provide education for the youngest country in the world. And this type of model is being realized in many different parts of the world. This is just the most recent. We're also working with the De La Salle Christian Brothers in the sector of Ireland to be able to partner with Missy Ankara to help procure funding through Irish Aid in support of many Lasallian ministries throughout the world. And so we know that we're working with many of our Lasallian NGO partners in order to do this. And we thank you. And we see that this is a potential growth area for the Institute. If we think about that slide that I showed earlier of all of the different public donors and the interest to partner with our Global Lasallian mission, this represents how we can leverage our global network to help obtain additional financial resources to continue to help support our educational initiatives in fragile sectors of the Institute. So thank you again to all of you for our NGO partners for making this possible. And finally, another way in which we're partnering with all of you and in which we'd like to continue to find new ways is through co-responsibility. When we start thinking about our Lasallian mission and self-sufficiency for the next 50 years and for the next 100 years, and who our leaders might be and where they might come from, we've realized that many of the future leaders might be our current students sitting in our classrooms right now today, or participating in the different activities of our various ministries in 80 countries throughout the world. And so we really want to work with all of you because we see the role that you have as crucial to informing those with whom you work every day about the work of our Global Lasallian family, and to let them know that they are already a part of this network, and to invite them to deeper participation in it, and to let them know that they can be a part of this Global Lasallian family well beyond leaving and completing their education in a De La Salle school or finishing their activities with a Lasallian ministry. And so we're really excited to continue this conversation with all of you to find out ways in which we can continue to do this and find new ways to do this more creatively and more efficiently as well. And so with that, I think we'd like to stop the presentation period portion of the presentation and just say thank you to all of you for joining us today and for all of the work that you do every day in our Lasallian schools and ministries throughout the world to help improve the lives of those with whom we serve. Thank you very much. And so now, if I just take a quick glance at the clock, great. Now we'd like to break out by language group to continue this conversation. We want to take advantage